Beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. This is Brown Cherry Commentary, and I'm your girl, Kayla. If you are new here, make sure to subscribe for more videos. Okay, so today I wanted to talk to you guys about albums, because over the past couple of weeks with the whole Grammys nomination type thing, if you haven't watched, I did my Grammy predictions video, and at the end of the video, I named some albums, some artists who were snubbed, and like everyone had their opinions on who they thought were snubbed, who they thought deserved the album of the year or whatever respective genre, best album, whatever. And it just had me thinking and being in conversations with various people as to the things that technically make an album a classic, a favorite, a 10 out of 10. Because there are some commonalities between, among everyone that kind of what makes an album a good album or a 10 out of 10. I have my own respective thing as a music lover, as an R&B enthusiast, you know what I mean? That I have that I generally look for when I'm listening to an album. But what I look for is maybe not something that you may look for, and especially depending on the genre of music that you listen to, there probably are certain things that you're paying attention to more than most. Like, for instance, if you like rap, you're looking for bars, you're looking for flow, you're looking for all that good stuff. I'm not necessarily looking at that on Still Rap album, because I'm not a super huge hip hop fan. Like I told y'all in my other video, I'm very like play it by ear. Just depends on the vibe that the certain rapper has, and if they like have what I like, I'ma listen to it. But most of the time, generally, I'm not really critically listening to a rap album. But yeah, but yes, like I said, art is subjective, music is subjective, and so what I think made things that are 10 out of 10, you may not think is a 10 out of 10. Some albums I'm going to name today, you might not think is great albums or a 10 out of 10, but to me, they are, okay? But these are just some things that I look for and things that I have noticed in critically acclaimed, very popular albums. And I feel like it's worth mentioning and having a conversation. So without further ado, I'm going to give you my key components on what makes an album a 10 out of 10, would recommend, would tell a friend. Okay? If you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes, because if I don't, I will ramble on for like days and day upon days. Okay? So yeah, but number one, we have the title, the slash album art. I put these two together because I think they go hand in hand. The best ones go hand in hand for sure. But yeah, just like a book or a movie title, the title of an album is supposed to let you know where we going, okay? Like, we're supposed to have a general idea on what the album is about just by looking at the title. It's supposed to hook you, the listener, in. Um, it's supposed to get you interested, intrigued on what the album is going to be about. Examples of this is like Chasing Summer, Channel Orange, A Seat at the Table. Okay, those are great album titles because it captures the entire general idea of the album, the theme of the album, what the album is generally about. Okay, sometimes the artist will opt into self-titling their album. This is definitely true if it's a first album, like the debut album, and when I hear or see a self-titled album, I'm looking to see, are these songs reflective of who this artist is? Are these songs, talking about, this person's upbringing, their family, things that are like essentially a part of them, or is it just sticking, to their general sound or aesthetic? A good example of this, of a good self-titled album, is Ella Mai's album. I know a lot of people don't like her little skits or like spoken word stuff she does at the end, but I like that she does that when she like says different letters of her name, and then she says a descriptor or whatever, and then there's a song that follows. I think that's really good because, like I said, it ties it all together and it makes it a cohesive project. And like I said, you're never forgetting what this album is about. It's about her, and these songs are reflective of who she is as an artist right now, right? Or at least when the album came out like 2 years ago, right? But yeah, another thing that artists may do is just name an album after a popular song of the album. Most albums are, there's a rollout, right? And with a rollout, there are singles. And sometimes the singles are really, really popular, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes the album doesn't use the title at all. But what I noticed is a lot of, especially this is very true for like pop albums, like I said, the most popular single is usually what the album ends up being named after, even if, like I said, it doesn't really have much to do with what the album is about. But it's technically, I feel like it's a marketing thing to get you interested in the album and wanting to listen to it. It's like, oh, I love that song, so I'm going to listen to the album. Okay, so examples of this is 24 Karat Magic, Teenage Dream, and Thriller. Okay, then there's album art. Like I said, I put them together because I feel like while the title is definitely important, album art is not necessarily as important, but it definitely adds some extra flavor, some parsley, if you will, to the situation. Okay, the best album artwork gives the listener further insight into what the title and the overall album is about to be about. Okay, while many album artwork is very simplistic, I feel, especially like, well, I feel like nowadays people try to jazz it up, but for the most part, most artists stay safe in terms of their album artwork unless they're just into art, like they like to draw like a Chris Brown or something. But they can, it's actually definitely extra brownie points for me because, like I said, it shows that every decision made that into going in this album is very meticulous. You know what I mean? Like they really put in that extra mile to show you like, nah, I'm really coming different. Okay. An example of album art that is really good, and like I said, it doesn't have to be like this art like masterpiece or some type of like actual artwork. Like I said, it could just be the setting of the picture or whatever, like, you know what I mean? A good example of this is Control, Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, and Confessions. And the Confessions is a new one for me because I thought it was just Usher just sitting there in the dark, staring off into space, until somebody mentioned that he was sitting in a confessional. And I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Because my man is confessing this whole album, right? He confessing his sins, okay? But yeah. Now, bad album titles are, there's not technically not bad album titles, but album titles that are weaker are ones that are kind of misleading or really have nothing to do with what the album is about. An example is, I'm bringing back Chris Brown for this one with his 2015 album Royalty, because based on the album artwork and the title, you're gonna think, oh, he's making songs about his daughter. Because like I said, in the album artwork, it's a picture of him and his daughter. It's really cute, it's a cute picture. But Royalty can't listen to them songs, okay? She cannot listen to them songs. Them songs are not about fatherhood. He's only one song in the entire album dedicated to her or about her. The rest of them she can't listen to till she grown, and that's if she don't want to feel uncomfortable because it's a bunch of, lusted tracks. There's some scandalous tracks. There's profanity, there's sexual themes, there's drug usage, and alcohol usage. So nothing really about being a father or songs that he can necessarily dedicate to his daughter except the one that's actually like named after her or whatever. But yeah, like I said, it's not necessarily a bad title. It's misleading to the listener because if you're looking at the title, you're looking at the album artwork, you're going to assume that that's what that album is going to be about when it's not like that. Like I said, but there's no such thing as necessarily a bad album title or like artwork. Like I said, I can understand sometimes when they use certain titles to be like a marketing ploy or whatever. But like I said, a good title and a good album artwork is a foundation for already a good album. Like I said, a common theme I noticed with most great albums, they usually have great titles and their album artwork is good. Like I said, it can just either artwork could even just be eye-catching, just interesting, intriguing. Like I'm like, okay. Same thing with books. Like I said, I'm a book nerd, so a lot of times I buy books just because they look good. Okay, they say don't judge a book by its cover, but I definitely do. Okay, if the cover is cute, I'ma buy it. So same with the album. If the album artwork looks interesting, I'm gonna buy it. Like when I saw The Weeknd's After Hours cover, I'm like, oh my God, why he look beat up? What's going on? Like, and even though nowadays it's kind of hard to see album artwork because we have streaming and we don't buy physical copies of albums anymore, I still pay attention, okay? I still look at them. That's why I said it's not as important, but definitely the title is what's definitely going to pull me in, and it should pull you in. That's the point. Okay, so next we have sequencing. This is definitely a very important element to a 10 out of 10 album. A YouTuber by the name of Nathan Zed made a video talking about and doing a deep dive on the art of sequencing, which you definitely should check out. But yeah, but sequence is an important element to an album because it gives the album great pacing and it helps build the overall story or, create a vibe that the artist is trying to create. Well sequenced albums are great because it allows each song to flawlessly transition into the next song, and you can appreciate it because like I said earlier with the title and the artwork, that this artist really took the time together to put together this album, and it feels purposeful. It feels like it was planned, like tender love and care went into the album. Okay, like I said, it just feels like almost impossible to listen to the album out of sequence because you know that, oh nah, this don't go, like it doesn't flow as well. Okay, so great sequence albums make an album a 10 out of 10. Okay, because it gives it great pacing, it feels purposeful, it feels like like you're getting an overall understanding, it builds off of each song, is great. Okay, examples of well sequenced albums are Shea Butter Baby, Take Care, Painted, Songs in the Key of Life, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. If you listen to any of those albums, you realize when you listen to them, each song builds off of the last, they transition to everything. You cannot put songs out of order. Like for instance, in Kanye West's My Beautiful Twisted Dark Fantasy, it starts with the song Dark Fantasy, and the way that the pacing of the song, how it starts is immersing you into the world of the album, and the album ends with a excerpt from a Gil Scott-Heron spoken word, and he's talking about who will survive in America. And it makes sense as the last thing you hear as the reader, or not the reader, the listener, because, it's leaving you on this lasting question that's echoing in your mind, and it's taking you back into the real world. It would not make much sense to put Who Would Survive in America at the beginning or put Dark Fantasy at the end, especially because in Dark Fantasy, Nicki Minaj says in her little British accent, gather around children, zip it, listen, like you're about to listen to the beginning of a nursery rhyme or some type of epic tale. How you gonna hear that at the end? Like, it doesn't make any sense. You see what I'm saying? So that's how you know the album is well sequenced, because the songs all flow into each other and you can't listen to the album out of sequence. It's just gonna be a little bit weird. I know some people do that, but those people are war criminals. I don't care. If you listen to an album on shuffle on first listen, you're a war criminal. Anywho, so going into the next thing is theme and storytelling. This is definitely one of my favorite elements of an album, especially when it's coupled with great sequencing. To me, great albums have some kind of theme or storytelling to it, or sometimes it has mini stories within each one. But like I said, it's an overall theme that the artist is trying to come across or convey. Albums that have certain themes are ones that have a main idea and use songs to further flesh them out. A good example is J. Cole's 2018 album, King of Drugs. Each song explores the various vices that, aka drugs, that Black people turn to cope with the stressors and trauma that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, which makes it like a good album. Like I said, there's a general theme, there's a general idea that is fleshed out throughout each track on the album. And then there are albums that are just following a plot pyramid of some kind. So bear with me, we getting real English nerdy real here quick, okay? So like if you know about the plot pyramid, which you should, but if you don't, it's basically following imagine a triangle, okay? And we start with the initial exposition. We're building the world, we're establishing characters, you know what I mean? We're getting the setting, okay, in place. Then there's the rising action, okay? Some tensions are rising, some stuff is starting to brew, and then we get to the climax, which is literally the height of the conflict, the height of whatever is going on that we have been building towards throughout the album. Then there's the falling actions. We're thinking of, we're kind of dealing with the fallout of whatever happened in the climax. We're thinking of resolutions. We're trying to get things together. We're trying to process what happened. And then we have the resolution where we're calming down. We're getting back to reality. We are, coming up with conclusions and wrapping everything up nicely. And we're left on the last, whatever song it is that's taking you back into the world of the album. Like I said, with the sequencing thing, stories, if you read a book, you don't read a book and immediately action, or if you don't watch a movie and immediately there's action, unless it's an action movie, sometimes they start that way, but the main conflict or main action is not happening within the first 2 seconds of a movie. So an album should not start that way if it has a story, right? So yeah, so you know what I mean? So basically, good albums have a story that's building on. Each track is telling the different chapters of this overall great story, and then we're left at the end with kind of like a lasting impression, a question, and we're getting, you know, pushed back into our everyday lives and our worlds. An example of a good our album that tells a story that's good is Lemonade, right? Lemonade, and probably why the reason people enjoy Lemonade and why it was such a critically acclaimed album is because of a clear story being told, right? It's talking about this infidelity that Beyonce is going through. Each song represents a stage of what Beyonce has gone through during this infidelity, right? We have, you know, the initial finding out about it, or the initial suspicions with Pray You Catch Me, and then we have the different phases. We have the I ain't sorry, where like I don't care, like I'm not thinking about you, I'm doing my own thing. We have 6-inch heels, we're going to the club, we're having a good time. We have, you know, Daddy's Lesson, where she's reflecting and understanding that maybe this comes from, you know, maybe my father's infidelity, maybe I was just destined for this to happen, you know. You know, he's trash because my daddy was trash, you know. No disrespect to Matthew Knowles, but this is just what the song is giving me, okay? And then we have, you know, a Sandcastles, and to me Sandcastles is, you know, around like the climax of the album for me, because it's the height of tension, it's the height of emotion, like it's a very emotionally charged song and all that good stuff. And then, you know, we get to, you know, we get to Forward, even though I know people don't listen to it, but it's a good thing because it's talking about moving forward, okay? We're progressing past the hurt, the pain. We're going to try to build things back together. And then we have, you know, songs like All Night, where, you know, everything works out. I took you back. We moved past it. We're, you know, we're moving on. We're feeling good. Okay, that's just like a loose interpretation of the album. If you want me to do a deep dive, let me know. I love analyzing albums. But you know what I mean? The point of the matter is it has good storytelling, right? You can clearly see from start to finish we're exploring a certain idea, a certain theme, which is infidelity, and a particular infidelity in this relationship. And that's why people go up for it. Also because people are nosy. But yeah, so another example of albums that are telling a story and it's building off of something is Chasing Summer Again, Painted, Shea Butter Baby, all those songs. And there's probably plenty other, but those are just ones that come to mind in their recent albums that have great storytelling, and each song building off of the last, telling this overall story and kind of following that plot pyramid I just mentioned. Okay, next we have variety and production. So I put these two together because they go hand in hand, okay? Great albums have good producers and engineers who choose songs and beats for the artist that complements the artist's voice and helps convey the vibe that the artist is trying to show within this album. The producer and the artist have great synergy, like a JT and a Timbaland, or a 480 and Drake. You know, these songs that are well produced in the album have no song that sounds the same yet still fits the aesthetic of the album. I should be able to differentiate the songs on this particular album from another album. For example, on Thriller, for instance. Thriller and Bad are two Michael Jackson albums that came out in the 1980s, right? However, there's Bad and Thriller have two different vibes, two different aesthetics going on here, okay? And the thing is, despite them being made within the same decade, I can tell which songs go on Bad and which go on Thriller, even if I don't know every album. I'm pretty sure I know all the tracks from each album, but let's say I didn't, I just heard a random song, I could be like, okay, that song is definitely on Thriller and that song is on Bad. Okay, you know what I mean? Okay, but yeah, and because it doesn't fit, the reason why you can do that is because it doesn't fit whatever respective album that it comes from, and that's due in part to great producers and engineers who helped create the album. Like I said, they find unique enough songs that still fit the vibe without it sounding repetitive. Which is probably the reason why I don't care for Yummy in particular. Because to me, every song sounds like, or at least the first whatever 5 or 6 songs sound like a variation of Yummy in some kind of way. So, and I keep calling it the Yummy album. It is called Changes. Like, it's not called Yummy. It might as well be though, because there is no change in this album, okay? Anywho, getting off of Justin Bieber, but that's part of the reason why I don't go up for it, because there is no change and it just feels repetitive. And I'm like, am I a joke to you? You know what I mean? And that's what weakens the project. But also another thing in terms of album and variety is just the pacing of each song. I feel like a good variety of an album is songs that are slow tempoed, fast tempoed, mid tempoed. You know, these are all, it gives you like you're not sitting there listening to, let's say, all fast songs, which is kind of overwhelming, unless it's like EDM music or something where that's like a norm. But like, you know, and it's not all slow songs, so you're not completely bored. Well, I understand that depending on the genre, like I just said, it could be a little bit harder to do a little bit of variety. It is also, but you know, like if you're doing like pop or even R&B, sometimes depending on the type of R&B you do, variety is always good. An example of an album that has good variety is 24 Karat Magic. You know, every song doesn't sound like the last album, you know, or at the last, every song does not sound like each other, yet still fits the vibe of the album. And we have a mix of different songs. There are faster songs like 24 Karat Magic, That's What I Like, and Perm. There's slower songs like Versace on the Floor, Too Late to Say Goodbye. And then there's mid-tempo songs like Straight Up and Down and Chunky. I know I left out some songs, but general idea I'm trying to point out is the fact that there's variety in the songs, there's a general aesthetic, there's an overall vibe that's encapsulated perfectly in this song, and that is due to great production and variety. Another thing is like the songs that are used. Variety could be, like I said, while most great albums have a theme or storytelling, even if it's in the theme, I mean, like I said, most albums have that in general, but part of some albums that I don't necessarily care for is that it's just talking about the same thing just a little bit differently. Like a lot of, especially R&B albums are talking about, let's say, sex, right? And they'll be like, just 12 lusty tracks about sex, and I'm like, okay, but what else? What else? Like, what else are we doing? Because that's boring. Or if it's like just songs about being heartbroken, what about being heartbroken? You know what I mean? Like, let's expand on that. Let's talk about the relationship. Let's talk how it fell out. Let's talk about what we're doing to move forward past the heartbreak. That is what I'm talking about. Not, oh, I'm so sad and he broke my heart for 12 songs. I don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear it. At least I know I don't. But like, that's like what things that are weakening the album as a whole. Like I said. So yeah, and the songs just sound good and professional. Nobody wants to hear a song that sounds like it was made in somebody's bathroom or in somebody's basement, even though many are made in somebody's basement. But I don't need to know that, okay? But yeah, like an album just needs to have variety. It needs to have something that is a vibe, you know, a pocket, an aesthetic that definitely ties everything together nicely and helps, you know, further create the story that the artist is trying to tell. Okay, so I'm going to make this video a two-parter for sure, because if I don't, it will end up being 40 minutes long, and I know nobody want to sit here and listen to me go on for 40 minutes. So I will definitely see you guys in part 2. Stay tuned where I give you the other elements of a great album.